Hey, here we go. It actually worked. I am live and it looks like it's okay. So sorry about that. I'm going to just see if I can share this right now. Let's see. Here's the link. We'll share this with folks. All right, all right. Okay. Yep. There's a great disturbance in the force. All right, people, slowly but surely. How's that look, Katie? Are we actually sounding okay and it's not being too weird? That's clean. Okay, thanks for the feedback. Uh, Again, my apologies. I can't figure out what YouTube is up to these days. I keep following exactly the same procedure I've been following for a year, and for some reason, for the past couple of weeks. It's acting funny. Not sure what the deal is, but we'll figure it out. In any case, the force is strong. That's right. And just for the record, I am not a cat. Okay. Uh, at least as far as I can tell, I am not a cat. So let's get going here. It's always kind of interesting when it takes a minute to take off. And I just want to wait just a second for people to show up, but you know, we might as well start, and we'll talk about posture as usual. Remember that if you, I'm wearing my glasses because my ancient eyes have trouble reading the screen otherwise, but you should take your glasses off, not be looking at the screen. You can have your eyes open, but if they're open, just gaze at the floor in front or at a wall or the sky or something, not looking up, but at least not higher than horizontal or even down a little bit, looking down, okay? And then you want to have your back, your lower back curved in, so your pelvis is tilted forward. That gets your whole back upright. You want to have your head, put your hand like this, and feel the top of your head kind of almost like reaching up. It's pushing up into your hand a little bit, right? And then you just tilt your chin forward, and then you'll feel your back doing just the right thing where it's upright, feels really alert, really upright. Dare I say, spine really erect, and then you got your chin tucked a little bit, and that feels just right. And then the whole rest of your body is relaxed. Shoulders relaxed and back. Hands are together like this. For some kind of cosmic energy reasons, they usually request that your left hand be underneath. You can find out if that makes any difference for you or not. Have your thumbs together like that. And then this is interesting. Some teachers are like, you can rest them in your lap, but other teachers are like, don't rest them. Have them just below your navel, like actually touching your belly, but not resting on anything. It means you have to have a little bit of tonification, right? A little bit of muscle activity in your arms, just a teeny, tiny bit to keep those hands up. And the idea there is that it keeps you just a little more alert. And we want to have really good alertness. So that means in that way of working, our arms aren't like loose, like wet rags, like I'm always saying. They just be very, 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 very slightly holding your hands up against your belly. You get to do it whatever way you want. Experiment with this. It's really nice. But the main thing is that we get that posture correct. Sitting like a mountain, like a pyramid. You should just feel absolutely grounded, like a mountain or a pyramid, like immobile. You have this sense, like they say in the sutras, of immovability. Even if there was a supernova, you wouldn't move. Even if a black hole tried to, pull you in, you wouldn't move. It's like this kind of cosmic immobility. That's the feeling, okay? And then the next thing we do, again, in traditional Buddhism, is based on the idea of the Buddha nature. In the essence tradition meditation that we're doing, we'll just call it the ground of being, usually, or just the ground. But the idea is that there's a kind of perfectly pure awareness that is beneath all that we see, all that we experience, all that we do, and that ground, this ground of being underneath or infusing everything, is already fully awake. It's already fully enlightened. It's already fully um, uh, as excellent as it could ever become. That's already there within you, and so when we meditate, we want to take on that mood, take on the confidence that that's within us, take on the clarity that all we have to do, in a way, in one way of looking at it, is rest within the ground of being. Take on the sense of connectedness and compassion to other beings, because at the ground of being, we are all connected, right? There's a kind of interconnection or interbeing that's available when we contact this ever-present ground. So I want you to feel that confidence and the wisdom and the clarity and the connectedness when you start, so that it's not like, oh, I'm such a shitty meditator and I can never focus. No thoughts like that. Instead, I want you to feel confident. I want you to feel clear. I want you to feel wisdom and compassion. And if you want to, you can even bring it up. And we'll do this several times tonight, but you bring it up now. The feeling of, almost like imagination play, like if I were a Buddha or a wisdom being like Green Tara, who is, this amazing, enlightened female figure. If I were a wisdom being, which hint in the ground of being you already are, that's why this imagination play works. If I were a Buddha, if I were a Bodhisattva, how would I do this meditation? How would it be? And so there's a thing of just taking on that energy, not like you're sitting there trying to picture it, but just feeling that sense of meditating like a bodhisattva now. Okay, so let's do that. And what I want you to do is begin to focus on your breathing like we always do. So remember, there's two dimensions to the breath. And the first one, to concentrating on the breath, but actually it's two dimensions to concentrating on anything. And the first dimension is continuity. So I want you to do slow, deep breathing with your belly moving in and out. And as you're doing that, you're maintaining continuous contact with the body sensations of breathing. So just try to get that continuity where all through the in-breath, from the beginning of the in-breath all the way to the very, 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 very end of the in-breath, you have continuous contact of attention on those sensations. And then all the way from the beginning of the out-breath, all the way, all the way, all the way, all the way, all the way to the out, 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 end of the out-breath, end of the out-breath, end of the out-breath, full contact. So it's continuous contact, in-breath, continuous contact with the out-breath. We want to touch the breath through the entirety of the breath cycle with our attention. And if there's a rest there at the end of the out-breath, for some people that rest can get really extended. I know when I do slow, deep belly breathing, sometimes the end of that out-breath just hangs there for a long time. And that's a real opportunity to get distracted because, of course, the breath isn't moving right there. So if you notice it's pausing, don't make it pause, but if you notice it's pausing, what I want you to do is just feel your whole body, right? Or feel some part of your body. So at that moment, you're just, say, feeling the belly or feeling your whole body. Okay? So continuous contact through the entire cycle of the breath. There's no spot in the breath where you're not connected, where the attention is not on the breath. It's on the breath the entire time. Slow, deep belly breathing, feeling how good that feels, noticing that awareness is very capable of continuous contact with the breath. I know some people are disappointed that I'm not a cat tonight. I promise at some point in the future, I will be a cat. So I will teach this as a cat. Okay, now that's continuity, right? That's dimension 1 of concentration. Dimension 2 of concentration is completeness. In other words, once you get good at continuity, it's really easy to sort of let that go on autopilot and just phone it in, and then be fantasizing about stuff with the rest of your brain. Even though there's continuous contact, like half your mind is off doing something else. And that's not good. That's called partial staying in Vajrayana. We could call this early section shamatha. I'm always calling it shamatha with an object. Shamatha means peaceful staying, right? Peaceful abiding. The dude peacefully abides. But in shorthand, sometimes if we're translating from Sanskrit or Tibetan, we might call this staying, which is really kind of a different feel from the English word concentration, which tends to feel so tight and rigid and controlly. All we're doing here is staying, meaning the attention is staying continuously on, in this case, the breath, right? So you can see if what we're trying to do is called staying or peaceful staying, you can get this situation where you're continuously staying, attention is continuously on the breath, but it's only partially there. Like a third of your attention is on the breath the whole time, but the rest of us is off thinking about dinner or whatever. And so we don't want that. We want complete attention. We want complete staying. So once you get continuous concentration, the next thing I want you to do is start digging in to the details of these body sensations of breathing. Feel the texture, feel the pressure, feel the density, feel how it feels like muscles and bones and guts, feel how it can feel like all this different kind of expansion, contraction. And eventually, as you dig in with more and more detail, like going from a low res video to a high res video, it's like if I told you to take like a really interesting thing with your hands, like let's say shag carpet, and feel it with your fingers. And now we're going to mix in some goop in there, and then we're going to mix in some sand, and then we're going to put little sticks and twigs and maybe some marbles and stuff. And now you're feeling that with your fingers, and you're feeling all those different textures. I want you to do that on the body sensations of breathing. Feel in great detail the texture all the way through the entire continuous flow of the breath. And as you get good at this, as you start going from partial staying to continuous staying, like I'm always saying in my stack model, you'll start to notice the breath instead of as like kind of solid objects breathing, muscles and bones and stuff. It will start to feel a lot more like a wave or like energy or like some kind of stuff moving. It's a very noticeable different thing. It's like energy or like waves. So however you dig in to get this complete staying, this total engagement of concentration with the breath, do that now. Meanwhile, I'll look up cat effects software for video. Now, if you can, I want you to keep doing this, but switch out of doing it from thinking with the machinery of the mind, like guiding it with your thinking, and just step out into a little bit of awareness outside thinking. So it's just awareness itself, following the body sensations of breath continuously, digging in with the body sensations of breath completely, and doing it from outside the machinery of the mind. Notice that it's totally possible to do that. Once you get the meditation, it doesn't require any more thinking. It's a very simple thing to do. And so just have awareness continuously and completely contacting the breath from outside thinking. Notice that awareness can also be aware if it's caught up in thinking. And so if you notice you're caught up in thinking, what do? You drop that, come back to complete and continuous contact with the breath. This awareness is just a smidgen of this ground of being, right? We're already noticing that. How does a Buddha meditate? How does a Bodhisattva meditate? Well, they meditate not from thinking. They don't come from the thinking mind. They come from awareness. So let's feel that breath in and out from the vantage point, if you want to call it that, of awareness. In other words, don't be a thinker, just be awareness, noticing the body sensations of breathing continuously and completely. And notice how freeing that is, how opening that is, and also that it's actually quite easy if you allow awareness to do it. Now, if you lose the view of awareness, meaning you drop back into the machinery of thought, that's okay. You know what to do. Just drop the ball, let go of thinking, and come back to just being awareness, feeling the body sensations of breathing. Remember that as we're doing this, you're noticing that it becomes easier and easier. That's how bodhisattvas meditate, right? It's like awareness itself just has no trouble being aware. Awareness is already aware. Awareness can be easily, continuously, and completely aware of these body sensations of breathing. It's just completely easy. And if it doesn't feel easy now, just wait a moment. Keep trying. Keep letting go into awareness, being aware. Notice it does not require thinking at all. It just does it. None of your thinking has ever made awareness more aware. Now, if you're sitting there struggling, how do I get out of thought? Stop doing that, because that's just more thought. The easy way to do it is to just notice, for example, between two thoughts, who's sitting there meditating between two thoughts? Awareness. It's already doing it. So let's not make this difficult. Just allow awareness to do the work for you. Just like I allow these sticks that are behind me to guide this entire meditation. These sticks are emanating the ground of being right now, and they're the ones who are guiding this meditation. I am simply a inflatable puppet that the sticks use to guide this. Okay, good. Now we're going to do something interesting. We're going to just barely stay with the sensations of the breath. So just a little toehold, just a little bit of awareness on the breath. But what I want you to do instead is to come into awareness outside thought and really be that. And if it starts to slip or you start to go back into thinking, you know what to do. Just drop the ball, drop the ball, drop the ball, let go of that thought, come back to being awareness. Now, this doesn't have to be any big special awareness. It's just awareness outside thought. Drop out of the machinery of the mind. Drop out of trying to do stuff and trying to figure stuff out and trying to do it right. As an already existing Buddha, as an expression of the ground of being, you already know how to do this right. It's not hard. It's actually the opposite of hard. It is so simple that you keep trying to figure out if you're doing it right or not. And that's just getting in the way. So just allow awareness to rest in itself. While a little bit of awareness is just feeling that body sensation of breathing, just kind of in the background, you're just maintaining this vantage point of being awareness, whether your eyes are open or closed. It's not about the visual field specifically. You might hear stuff, you'll feel stuff, but we're not really engaging with it. We're simply holding the view, as we would say, of awareness outside thought. So see if you can do that. If you can't, if it doesn't make any sense, you don't know what I'm talking about, just come back to following your breath and really attempting to have awareness, follow the breath. However, you can do it. If you can do it, we're just doing this little thing, a little bit of effort, maintaining this view of standing outside of thought in awareness. Notice that you can have any amount of thinking happening here. It doesn't matter whether thoughts are arising or not. Thoughts are not a problem. They're only a problem if we get caught in them. So we're just standing outside the machinery of thought. We're in awareness. And thoughts can happen. Who cares? If you get caught up in them, though, free yourself. Drop the ball. Come back to just being this free awareness, right? Oh, the ground of being is utterly free. It is never caught in anything. You were born with already existing infinite freedom. So just allow yourself to quit pretending that you're caught in thought and instead rest in your natural, already existing freedom. If you get caught up in thinking, just drop that. Just let it go. Let it be. Don't worry about it. Come back to just being awareness, being aware. Notice you don't have to do anything to be aware. Awareness is already aware. There's no activity necessary. It's already doing it. Excellent, bodhisattvas. So, as one bodhisattva to another, you're doing great. The absurdity of a Buddha teaching Buddhas to be Buddhas is not lost on me. What a hilarious, ridiculous absurdity that we are all involved in. And as part of that absurdity, let's go a little deeper into this ground of being thing. Let's investigate the ground of being slightly. And what are we doing it from? We're doing it from the ground of being. So this is awareness investigating itself. Now, in a poetic way of talking about it, one of the things about the ground of being is it's already complete. There's absolutely nothing missing. So as you're being awareness outside thought, notice if some part of your mind is looking for something that's missing, and just let go of that. Awareness tuning into its sense of completeness, its sense of already there-ness, already being enough, already being everything there could ever be. It has a complete, I'm going to say, a complete sense of completeness, a full, fundamental, total, and absolute sense of completeness. There's nothing missing from this ground of being that you already are. So tune into that quality of completeness. Nothing missing, nothing lacking. There's no lack of any kind. There's nothing the ground of being needs. It is already absolutely complete. Again, I don't want you to be imagining this or somehow figuring it out or thinking about it or making mental pictures about it or anything like that. We're staying outside the machinery of thought. I just want you to tune into that as awareness, tune into that quality of awareness that is already full, that is already complete, lacks nothing. Good. Now continuing, I'd like you to tune in to the sense that the ground of being has always been there and always will be there. It's outside of time. Feel the sense of the ground of being in eternity. And that doesn't feel like an imagination of a long time. It just feels permanent outside of time. It has this eternal quality outside of time. Again, just intuitively feel that. Don't think about it or imagine it. Hint, it's never been missing at any point in your entire life. It's the one thing that's always been there. Minimally from the time you were born to the time you die, but it might even have been there before that and after that. It's outside of time. So just feel not only this completeness quality, but also the timeless quality of the ground of being. Again, if you get caught up in thinking about it, just notice that that's happening. Drop it. Just like a dog. You've got the ball. Come on, drop it, drop it. Drop the ball. And come back to resting in completeness and in a kind of eternity, a timelessness. The trouble with saying eternity is then you'll start imagining eternity, and I don't want you to do that. So instead, I'll say timelessness. Just feel that almost floaty, dreamy, timeless quality. It's right there. Remember that the ground of being is not something you're imagining. It's not something that you're generating. It's at the ground of your being. It's the most fundamental thing about you. So it's quite easy to contact. It's in fact something you can never not be in contact with. That's why you can have so much confidence about this, and wisdom and clarity and compassion, because it's the most obvious, easy, simple thing in the world. Good. Now, what I'd like you to do is notice what's usually referred to as the purity of the ground of being. And what they mean by purity is that there's nothing wrong as far as the ground of being is concerned. Everything is fine. There's nothing to do. Not only is it already complete, it's already perfect. There's nothing to do. There's no problem to solve. And so notice not only that completeness quality and the timeless quality, but notice the perfection quality, the fact that there's no problem to solve, there's no thing to do. The ground of being doesn't need to meditate. The ground of being doesn't need to get enlightened. It already is. And it always has been, and it always will be. So simply tune into that quality of nothing to solve, which we would call, in a more traditional language, it's purity, the fact that nothing can ever happen to the ground of being that makes it less perfect. What's beautiful about this in our lives is that no matter how depressed or shitty or upset we are, on the relative plane, in our minds or in our imagination or whatever, in our thinking and feeling, the ground of being, which is the source of thinking and feeling, is actually just as pure, just as bright, just as complete, just as perfect as it always was. And so even in those moments of feeling really bad or confused or messed up or like everything is wrong, we can trust, we can rest in the ground of being and notice that it's always still fine. There's a kind of basic sanity and basic clarity and basic completeness that is always present for you. So tune into that purity aspect now. Remember, if you get caught up in your mind, just drop that. We are abiding as the ground of being. Now, I want you to do something as the ground of being right now. And I want you to just look for who you are. Feel your sense of being yourself. And I want you to look for that using awareness, not thinking, not trying to figure it out. Just find it. And if you think you found it, allow awareness to look deeply, 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 deeply into that at the finest level, down to the little atoms and molecules, and see really, is there a self there? Is there a self actually findable in any spot, anywhere in awareness? Hint, you can't find it. But I want you to look anyway. Allow awareness to look, look, look. Is the sense of self in your heart? If it feels like it is, allow awareness to examine the feelings in the heart very, 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 very closely. You'll notice there's still feeling there, but there's no self there. If you feel like the sense of self is in your head someplace, examine all the feelings in your head. Notice, no matter how fine-grained you get, because awareness can be very fine-grained, notice there's no sense of self. And I want awareness to look everywhere. Keep looking, keep looking, keep looking. And see if you can find a sense of self. Hint, again, if you think you found it, look more closely, because you will see it dissolves before the clarity of awakened awareness, the ground of being's inherent wisdom. Okay, good. So now notice that when we are using the ground of being, so to speak, as our vantage point, when we are being, when we're coming from the ground of being, we're not only outside thought, but there isn't a sense of self there either. Or to put it more clearly, the sense of self that's there turns out to be a kind of mental construction. You can't actually find it. It's just sort of a feeling we have. And so reside as the ground of being outside thought and outside personality. Again, reminding you that thought and personality can be there. Both of those things can be happening, and that's completely fine. We're not trying to get rid of them. In the long run, they are seen to just be beautiful expressions of the ground of being. But rather, we're just not fixatedly residing within them at the moment. And now let's look at another quality of the ground of being, which is that it has no boundaries. Allow awareness to be aware in any direction, and there's just no boundary. If there seems to be a boundary, just notice that that's a mental construction. You're just making a boundary in your mind. And so just let go of the boundary. Let go of the boundaries in front and behind, right and left, up and down, and in all directions until there's just no boundaries anywhere. The ground of being is boundless. Sometimes I say boundaryless or look at its boundarylessness, but the word is boundless. So feel this boundlessness. It's a very pleasant aspect of the ground of being to notice that it's already totally free. There's nothing restricting it in any direction. And because it's boundless, because there are no boundaries, the ground of being extends in all directions, which means it includes everything. Uh, the whole world, the outside world, all universes, all beings are inside the ground of being. Even you, your body, your mind, your personality, your thoughts are within the ground of being. All these things arise within the ground of being. Again, don't try to imagine it or picture it or think about it or solve it. Just let go of the sense that somehow the ground of being is inside you and notice that you and the world are within this awareness. Feelings of the body, the thoughts in the mind, the sense of personality, the sense of an outside world, all of that is simply experience in awareness. It is the appearance, the display, the fabulous display of stuff arising within the ground of being. If thoughts continue to arise and you're not caught in them, just notice that they're just display. They're just kind of a laser light show. They're just kind of a fabulous phantasm occurring within the ground of being. If personality arises and you're not caught in it, notice that it's simply thought and feeling, it's sensation, projected within the ground of being. Even the world around is just a kind of image, just a kind of construction within awareness. Don't figure it out, don't think about it, don't try to understand, just notice it directly. Now notice that because everything's arising within the ground of being, that means there's no inside or outside. The sounds of the world are both within and without. The sights of the world are as inside as outside. Your deepest, most private emotions that you feel are inside are actually projected out into awareness. There's no hiding anything. Get that sense that in the ground of being, there's no inside and no outside. It's all just within the ground of being. The ground. This is the ground of being. So within this timeless, boundless, already complete, perfectly pure, no inside, no outside, ground of being within which the whole world and our thoughts and our feelings and everything, within which everything's arising as just a kind of display. Notice that feeling of being a person doing something is just display within awareness. That feeling that you're trying to meditate is just display within awareness. The feeling that there's something to do right is just display within awareness. In other words, from the viewpoint of the ground of being, there's nobody doing anything. The ground of being is already perfect and complete. There's no action to take. All actions which are happening are simply displays within awareness. They're simply tremendously beautiful, dancing within awareness. But nobody is doing anything. There's nothing to do. There's no problem to solve. There's nobody trying to complete anything. It's all already complete. It's all already perfect and pure. It's all already absolutely connected, containing all things, limitless, totally free, totally full, without any problem to solve anywhere, without anyone to do anything anywhere, needing nothing, desiring nothing. The ground of being. And now notice that all the things arising, thoughts, feelings, personality, body sensations, all are just streaming display within awareness, and that they are not separate from the ground of being. They are actually just the ground of being dancing, the ground of being fabulously displaying itself. Even the sense of the world around is just simply this ground of being having fun. Making pictures, making feelings, making sensations, making stuff happen, all as part of itself, displaying itself to itself. Notice how awareness itself knows itself. The ground of being itself knows itself through itself and by itself. And all the things that seem to be arising and happening are simply itself knowing itself dancing. Nothing to do, nothing missing, everything perfect and complete. No inside, no outside, no time, no space. Simply the ground of being, conscious of its own fabulous display. None of the display needs to be changed. From the viewpoint of the ground of being, everything is already perfect and pure. Everything is already complete and just the way it should be. Don't get caught up in thinking. Thinking is simply fabulous, vivid, spontaneous awareness dancing. Don't get caught up in trying to do anything at all. All sense of doing is empty. All sense of trying is empty. It's all just fabulous display in awareness. Awareness that needs nothing, that does nothing and everything, that has always been here, that is unborn and undying. Absolutely nothing to change, nothing to do, nobody to do anything. Boundaryless, timeless, eternal, completeness, fullness. love, connection, compassion, playful, joyous, spontaneous display in the ground of being. This is what you actually are. Everything else arises in this. Everything else is simply this dancing. There is nothing else. Now, because the ground of being contains all display, that means now we can make this wish that all beings who are everywhere in every universe at all times in the past and future and present know this wisdom, come to know this perfect wisdom of the ground of being, come to know what and who they really are, come to feel this already existing completion, and also to enjoy the fabulous display, the vivid dance of awareness, aware of itself. All beings waking up to noticing their already existing Buddhahood, their already existing ground, what and who they really are right now. Good. Now, what I would say is just stay there forever. That's what you really are. You can, everything you've ever done has come from this place, has been the ground of being imagining, playing at doing everything. However, for now, we will talk about relative reality. And let's pretend that we were doing something called meditation. And let's pretend that we're going to end that now. And we're going to engage in relative reality a little bit, which is fine. Relative reality is the expression of the ground of being. It's just as important. In relative reality, there's stuff to do. In relative reality, there's beings to care about and to help. Relative reality as an expression of the ground of being is not less real than the ground of being. It's equally real. It is the ground of being. And so taking care of relative reality is tremendously important. There's a big mistake you can make here, by the way, just pause. You can take care of your body, go to the restroom if you need to, stretch and all that. Just relax. We're done with the meditation. There's a big mistake you can make here, which is to think that, there's this ground of being and everything's perfect. And so I don't have to do anything and I don't have to solve any problems. And it's okay if my neighbors are starving and there's people killing each other in the street, because the ground of being is already perfect and pure. And that's a big mistake. That is not the way it is. We don't get to say that, because absolute reality is already pure, that somehow relative reality doesn't matter. It's the opposite, actually. Relative reality is the display of the absolute. And so it's just as important. This is the lila, right? This is the divine dance, the divine play that the ground of being is doing right now. Therefore, it's every bit as important to engage with that with tremendous joy and confidence and clarity and compassion, right? We have a cat, and this cat has a Japanese name, Chichibu, and even though that's a man's name, it's also the name of a whiskey, which is how our female cat got named Chichibu. I think Chichibu in Japanese translates to something like father, law, and order or something. It's like a hilarious, like in English, it just sounds really funny. But Chichibu is also the name of a city and a temple, but particularly a whiskey. So that's why our little calico girl cat is named that. She has this really, really cute behavior, which we couldn't understand, right? At night we would just hear this mewling, not meowing and not hissing or anything like that, but like a kind of plaintive calling, like that kind of, I don't know what that's called, but I'll call it mewling because I think that's as close as we could get in English to that particular sound. It's not caterwauling like, it's a sweet sound. And we would hear it in the dark and we're like, what is that? I mean, it's really beautiful and all that, but what is she doing? And that went on for quite a while. And eventually, because she would only do it in the pitch dark, it was like she was kind of shy about it. And eventually what we realized, we saw her doing it in some like light from outside or whatever one night. And we realized that it had to do with her panda bear. So she has a little panda bear toy, and it's just the right size. Like we got it for her when she was a kitten, and it was just the same size of her when she was a kitten, size as her when she was a kitten. It's like this little stuffed panda bear. And what we saw in the light coming from outside was that she had the panda bear stuffy in her mouth, and she was carrying it around as her little baby, as a kitten, and she was making this beautiful mewling, like wow, wow, sound to her bear, to her little kitten, her pretend kitten, and we noticed after a while that in the morning when we'd wake up, she had taken the bear toy over to the water dish, sometimes even dropping it in the water dish because the bear was thirsty, apparently. And sometimes she'd take it to the food dish because the bear was hungry. And sometimes she'd put it on, like, let's say if she was sleeping on the couch that night, she'd bring the bear and have it sleep on the couch with her, and so on. And we just realized, like, in her heart, she's like taking care of her little baby kitten and creating this beautiful song for it each night and carrying it around with her wherever and feeding it and giving it water and making sure it has company. She's always taking care of her little kitten using this bear toy. And To me, that's a perfect demonstration of the ground of being. Right? It's a perfect metaphor, but it's not a metaphor. It's the spontaneous display of the ground of being. Right? There it is. There's the whole thing. This little cat carrying around a pretend kitten and treating it with tremendous kindness, bringing all that beautiful mothering skill to each of these moments. Now, I can unpack that all for you as a metaphor, but I feel like that would be ridiculous. You all understand what I mean, right? So let's go from there to questions. You can start typing your questions in the live chat window. But what I want to say is that, so remember that when we're dealing with the ground of being and we're saying it's perfect and it's complete and there's nothing to do and all that, I'm never, ever, ever somehow saying that, you know, we don't need to go fix poverty and, question our own racism and, we don't need to worry about politics or something. I'm never saying that. In fact, I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying that because it's an expression of the ground of being, all of those things matter deeply. All of those things are important to engage with, and we engage from the beauty and the power and the depth of the ground of being. Okay, so ask me some questions. McCrad says, do you think there exists a so-called objective of reality outside of perception? And then what am I to you? Just more perceptions? Or am I different from your chair within your experiential reality? To answer that question in just the way you mean it, of course, there's an external reality. However, even that is arising within the ground of being. And we are all part of the ground of being. So there's no way to say another person is just a perception like a chair. Rather, what we would say is that if we were really digging into this on the way it's intended, sort of traditionally, we would say the other person is equally the ground of being. The other person is the same ground of being, not a separate ground of being, but the same one. And so we're just two displays of a single thing arising with our own spontaneity, our own dance, our own beauty. And yet those two things, like I said, are full expressions of the ground of being and need to be treated with tremendous care and compassion. Linda is attempting to explain to me cat behavior. I disagree. It's okay. You can project your thing on it. Hunting behavior is cool too. Awesome. Michael, I was wondering how your own practice is going. What does the cutting edge of Michael Taft meditating feel like? Well, we're always just trying to spend more time, more deeply and completely, both being the ground of being, but also expressing that, right? Being in the world, interacting with the world, doing with in the world as display. And what I'm always trying to notice is where I fall out of the view and come back into being caught in thought and feeling and going, oh, there it is, tricked again, right? Like I forgot. So we come back to this larger view, or even sometimes it's not always the big view of the ground. It's just a part of the ground of being like, well, at least I'm outside of thought right now. At least I'm outside of personality right now. And then it goes deeper and deeper and deeper. So in other words, I'm always looking, both resting in the grounded being, but also seeing where I get caught and then attempting to notice the emptiness of the thing that that seemed to catch me, right? And then that thing becomes easier and easier to work with, easier and easier to see through as just play, as just expression. And even the being who thinks he was caught as just play, as just expression, and then come back into being the ground of being, which of course never actually stopped happening. We just get diluted. It's always there. Thanks for asking, Glenn. Charles, I have trouble squaring the fact that I'm already awakened or the pure ground of being with the fact that I'm simultaneously being distracted by thoughts. We all do, right? That's the delusion. That's the delusion. So don't square it as a fact. That's not the right way to work with it, like trying to figure it out. Just drop all that and say, can I be undistracted by thoughts right now, sitting in awakened awareness, or sitting in awareness itself, sitting in the ground of being, and then it's already squared. There's no problem there, right? It's just, remember, it's spontaneous play. Absolute being likes to play as relative being, and part of the play of relative being is getting caught in thinking. So it's not actually a problem, it's just something to notice and allow. And then you'll notice you're not caught in thinking anymore because you never actually were. David was profoundly in the ground of being tonight. Thank you, David. It's always a pleasure to have you in these meditations. Is the ground of being synonymous with Dharmakaya? Yes, it is, although it actually includes Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya. So it's that bigger kaya that includes all three, right? It's kind of the mega kaya or Mahakaya. If you want to use Buddhist language, I can't even remember the name of all three. There's a special name for all three of them together, but that's what it is. Is the ground of being outside impermanence? Find out for yourself, Danny. That's what I would say. It's a good question. It's one of those theoretical questions. Is that really an issue for you right now? Find out. Different Vajrayana traditions and Hindu Tantra traditions would have different answers to that question. Some say even the ground of being is empty, therefore it's impermanent, but that leads to interesting contradictions. Other traditions say, no, the ground of being is permanent. It's the one thing and that leads to other interesting contradictions. And so what we understand is trying to actually land on some idea about the ground of being within thinking is just never going to work, right? So that's why I say see for yourself. I would say we can notice it as both impermanent and permanent, and there's interesting experiences in both directions. And we're getting into sectarian stuff now, like which exact flavor of Vajrayana depends on the answer to that question. And I'm just going to bypass all that. Just going to completely say, that's just your getting caught in thinking again. So let go of that for now. Anthony, with all different types of meditation, do they all have the same endpoint, same goal, same state? No. You can people can meditate for all kinds of reasons. I would say that the awakening traditions are going to tend to point in a similar direction. But like I say, even within awakening traditions, they might have differences about whether that end state is this or that. And if we get caught up in that, now we just brought ourselves back into getting all fixated on thought. So instead, for now, let go of all that, be the ground of being, notice those kinds of issues just are play. Now it's getting late here, so let's see. I'm going to skip some questions. Lawrence is asking, is realization a term I would use? And if so, what does that mean to me? And what might be the experience of a being that's reached realization? I kind of use the term realization sometimes, but you can mean it at different levels, like realizing just awareness at all, right? Outside of thinking, realizing you're not a personality, outside of personality, those are realizations. Sometimes it's realization with a capital R, and that usually refers to realizing yourself as the ground of being. But is that permanent? And on the relative level, do you stay there or do you slip back out of it? And so, what level of realization? We can get caught up with these terms. You can really start to grind on these terms and notice that that's interesting. It helps you sort stuff out. Being, really clear intellectually is helpful. We don't want to get rid of the mind. We're not trying to, you know, look down upon thinking or whatever. Thinking is great and it's useful and it's how we do so many cool things. And yet, if you're in your meditation and these kind of issues are like a big deal to you, just stop doing that. They're not important, at least while you're meditating. You're just letting that get in the way. Okay, so you're asking me about a specific word in English and how I use it and what it means. And I guarantee no other person will use it that way. We all use these things slightly differently. And I'll define some of my terms really clearly, but in the end, you all already have access to the ground of being. See for yourself. See for yourself. Lou is asking, why do we forget so easily? Because this is the fun of the play. When you go to a theater and watch a play, or when you go to a movie, or when you, let's say now, because of COVID, you're home watching a movie, what makes a movie the most fun? What makes a movie the most fun is when you're completely engaged. You totally believe it. If you're like thrown out of the movie, like, oh, I see what the script is doing and this dialogue is dumb and I see what the actors are up to. And, you're kind of outside the film, like analyzing it. That can be interesting too, but you've lost the fun of it, right? You're not engaged enough to be in screenwriting terms. I used to live in Hollywood and do screenwriting stuff sometimes. In screenwriting terms, what you want to have happen during a movie is called suspending disbelief, right? You want to suspend disbelief because that's the funnest way to engage a film. And that's why we forget, because when the ground of being is spontaneously playing as itself, with itself, by itself, there's fun in believing the play. But we also want to be able to come back out of it and notice it as play. Both are important, both are interesting. Nico's asking me how many tattoos I have. There is no number, right? What counts as one tattoo? Let's just say there's a lot of skin surface dedicated to tattoos. All right, so at that point, with that very important fucking question, let's switch gears here and talk about money. I'm going to switch gears entirely and talk about money. Remember that these guided meditations are brought to you courtesy of myself and courtesy of the San Francisco Dharma Collective. So Katie from San Francisco Dharma Collective will be posting a link there in the live chat. And if you want to contribute to getting these free guided meditations out to the world, and that's no problem for you, and you just, you just had your first IPO and you're swimming in billions of dollars, please help these meditations come to the world and give a donation to the San Francisco Dharma Collective, which is a 501c3. It's a deductible, tax deductible contribution. If, on the other hand, you are enjoying getting these meditations, this guidance for free, and then great. I love that. It's part of my gift to the world. It's part of San Francisco Dharma Collective's gift to the world that these go out to the world for free. But what I ask you is to please um, give freely to those around you. Give of your time, give of your love, give of your heart, give of your wisdom. Uh, come from the ground of being always. And notice that there, in one way of looking at it, in the absolute way of looking at it, there are no other beings. It's all us as one being playing the game of all the variety and all the fabulously different displays. And we want to be kind to each other. All right, everybody. So be excellent, do some art, play. Whatever you're doing in life, do it as best as you possibly can. Notice that the ground of being is really good at stuff. And so you can learn, you can grow, you can change. Whatever you're doing, engage fully, right? This is like a, uh, Jean-Luc Picard moment, like engage. That's what the ground of being wants. It wants totally high quality, high impact, vivid, spontaneous, beautiful, effortless, wonderful, engaged display. So, all right, cats and catesses, various beings of various sorts, go do it. And I will see you here in this imaginary display that we create once a week. What a tremendous metaphor for the whole cosmic light show is this YouTube thing. I will see you here next week, same time, same place. Be there. All right, everybody, take it easy. Bye bye.